From NBC News in Washington, this is Meet the Press with David Gregory.
This Sunday, she's logged 100,000 miles traveling around the globe as Secretary of State, pushing President Obama's foreign policy goals as his top diplomat. This week in Asia, she confronted U.S. adversaries, trading barbs with the North Koreans.
There is no place to go for North Korea. They have no friends left.
And warning Iran against its nuclear ambitions.
If the United States extends a defense umbrella over the region, they won't be able to intimidate and dominate as they apparently believe they can once they have a nuclear weapon.
From the wars abroad in Afghanistan and Iraq to the battle at home over health care, what influence is she having on her former political rival, now the President of the United States? Our exclusive guest for the full hour, the former First Lady of the United States, Democratic Senator from the state of New York, and candidate for the Democratic presidential nomination in 2008, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
Let me talk about another difficult area, and that's Russia, where there has been an attempt by the president to say, we're going to reset this relationship. Vice President Biden, who was just traveling in the region, talked to the Wall Street Journal, and his comments raised some eyebrows. This is what he said. The reality is the Russians are where they are. They have a shrinking population base. They have a withering economy. They have a better and structure that is not likely to be able to withstand the next 15 years. They're in a situation where the world is changing before them, and they're clinging to something in the past that is not sustainable. Is he speaking for the president, and is the message essentially that the U.S. now has the upper hand when it's dealing with Russia?
No, and I don't think that's at all what the vice president meant. I mean, remember, the vice president was the first person in the administration in an important speech which he gave in Munich, Germany, shortly after President Obama's inauguration, that we wanted to reset our relationship with Russia. And we know that that's not easily done. It takes time. It takes trust building. And we want what the president called for during his recent Moscow summit. We want a strong, peaceful, and prosperous Russia. Now, there is an enormous amount of work to be done between the United States and Russia. We're working on reducing our nuclear arsenal. We're going to work on reducing fissile material to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. We're working to combat the threat of violent extremism. Russia has been very helpful in our United Nations efforts vis-a-vis North Korea. The Russians joined the G8 statement in Italy, talking about the need for Iran to come to the table, either in a multilateral forum like the P5+1 that we're part of, or bilaterally with us. And so there is an enormous amount of hard work being done, and we view Russia as a great power. Now, every country faces challenges. You know, we have our challenges, Russia has their challenges, and there are certain issues that Russia has to deal with on its own. And we want to make clear that as we reset our relationship, we are very clearly not saying that Russia can have a 21st century sphere of influence in Eastern Europe. That is, you know, an attitude and a policy we reject. We also are making it very clear that any nation in Eastern Europe that used to be part of the Soviet Union has a right now, as a free, sovereign, and independent nation, to choose whatever alliance they wish to join. So if Ukraine and Georgia someday are eligible for and desire to join NATO, that should be up to them. So I think that you know, what we're seeing here is the beginning of the resetting of that relationship, which I have been deeply involved in. I will be co-chairing a presidential commission along with Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. We'll be following up on what our two presidents said in Moscow. And the Russians know that, you know, we have continuing questions about some of their policies, and they have continuing questions about some of ours.
Wait, before we get to a break, I want to get to another hot spot, and that, of course, is Afghanistan. And the headline coming out this week, U.S. deaths hit a record high in Afghanistan. The toll of 31 so far in July makes for the deadliest month of the war. Given that the president is surging up forces, 17,000 additional troops going to Afghanistan, is this a war of necessity for this president, or has it become his war of choice?
Well, I think the president has been very firm in stating that the policy that was followed in Afghanistan was not working. He said it throughout the campaign. He made that clear upon becoming president. And we know that the threat to the United States, and in fact, those who plotted and carried out the horrific attack on 9/11 against our country, have not yet been brought to justice, killed, or captured. So the president's goal is to dismantle and destroy and eventually defeat al-Qaeda.
And yet, if I can just stop you, the real focus now is fighting the Taliban, which is an insurgent movement. And Thomas Friedman wrote this on Wednesday. I'd like you to respond to it. America has just adopted Afghanistan as our new baby. The troop surge that President Obama ordered in Afghanistan early in his tenure has taken this mission from a limited intervention with limited results to a full nation-building project that will take a long time to succeed, if ever. We came to Afghanistan to destroy al-Qaeda. Now we're in a long war with the Taliban. Is that really a good use of American power?
Well, David, we had an intensive strategic review upon taking office, and we not only brought the entire United States government together, but we reached out to friends and allies, people with stakes in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And as you know, the result of that strategic review was to conclude that al-Qaeda is supported by and uses its extremist allies, like elements within the Taliban and other violent extremist groups in the region as well as worldwide, to extend its reach, to be proxies for a lot of its attacks on Jakarta, Indonesia, and elsewhere. So that in order to really go after al-Qaeda, to uproot it and destroy it, we had to take on those who were giving the al-Qaeda leadership safe haven. Now, as you know, the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is permeable. There are movements back and forth across it. I think our new strategy, which has been endorsed by a very large number of nations, some of whom don't agree with us on a lot of other things, is aimed at achieving our primary goal. And we also learned from Iraq, which were hard lessons, that in order to have our military intervention be effective, when they go in and try to clear areas of the extremists, we have to follow in to build up the capacity of the local community to defend itself and to be able to realize the benefits of those changes. This is a new strategy. It's just beginning. I think the president believed that it was not only the right strategy, but facing what he faced, to withdraw our presence or to keep it on the low level, limited effectiveness that had been demonstrated, would have sent a message to al-Qaeda and their allies that the United States was willing to leave the field to them. And in addition, importantly, we've seen the Pakistani government and military really step up, which had not happened to the extent it has now. So the Taliban, which is, as I believe strongly, part of a kind of terrorist syndicate with al-Qaeda at the center, is now under tremendous pressure. And I think that's in America's national interest. Now, I have to add, nobody is more saddened than the President and I by the loss of life of our young men and women. And no one is more impatient than we are to see the results of this sacrifice bear fruit. We have the most extraordinary military in the world. They have leadership now we think is totally on point in terms of what we're attempting to accomplish. And I think that we'll see benefits come from that.
All right, we're going to leave it there for the moment. We're going to take a short break here, and we'll have much more with Secretary of State Clinton, including a question that keeps popping up around the world.
Will we ever get to see you as President of the United States?
Wow, that's not good.
All coming up on Meet the Press.
Meet the Press is brought to you by the Boeing Company.
We all want an America defined by deep and meaningful equality, from civil rights to labor rights, from women's rights to gay rights, from ending discrimination. There are no acceptable limits, and there are no acceptable prejudices in the 21st century in our country.
We have a common task and a common challenge.
Why can't we see that we are all in this together?
18 million of you from all walks of life. women and men, young and old, Latino and Asian, African American and Caucasian, rich, poor and middle class, gay and straight, you have stood with me. And I will continue to stand strong with you every time, every place, in every way that I can. The dreams we share are worth fighting for.